Hi everyone, thanks for joining. My name is Nimrod Geva and I manage QuizCon's product group. And today I'm going to speak about one of our add-ons called Repeating Rows Column. The Repeating Rows column enables you to create multi-row forms in SharePoint environment, which means SharePoint Server and SharePoint Online. Now, the Repeating Rows column is also part of a bigger product called QuizCon Forms, which enables non-technical users to create amazing forms in SharePoint environment. And in today's demo, I will show some repeating rows features, and I've listed most of them here on this slide. Some of the features rely on QuizCon Forms behind the scenes. I will mention which of the features require QuizCon Forms and which do not. So let's get started. Okay, so I've prepared two nice demos. The first one includes an expense report, a multi-row expense report, and I'll show some, first of all, the basic configuration, how to configure a repeating rows column in SharePoint. And then I'll show some features such as the ability to attach a file to every expense row, like the receipt, and some summary fields that sum up the overall expenses, for example. I'll show some lookup fields and how we can also export the expense report to Excel for additional processing by the one who gets all these reports. So let's get started. So I have this SharePoint 2013 site, and here I have the expense reports list. Let's see how this, let's open the new item form and see how it looks like. Okay, so we have here, besides the title, we have the expense details field. This is a repeating rows column. As you can see, it displays 4 rows. And this is because I configured it to display by default 4 rows. And it displays various columns. Now, where are these columns taken from? These columns are taken from another list, which is called expense details. So what this repeating rows field does, actually, it connects the expense reports master list with the expense details list. So we have kind of a one-to-many relation between a report and its details. This enables me to report multiple expense details in one shot. And these columns are displayed from the expense details list because I configured it to display these columns. And I'll show you the configuration in a bit. You may also notice that we have here under the cost column, we have a summary field. And again, this is because I configured the repeating rows column to display a summary field below the cost field. And you also can see that we have an upload field, which enables me to attach a file per expense details row. For example, I would like to attach the receipt, the scanned receipt, which proves that I had this expense. And finally, there's another column called approved, and it's locked for reading. And this is because I configured it to display its content only to the user who is allowed to see it. In our case, the one who approves the expense report. This is done, only this column, this is done by using QuizCon Forms behind the scenes. QuizCon Forms enables me to hide or show fields according to various criteria. Now let's update some expenses, just for example. So let's say drive to a conference, and let's provide a date. And let's provide a receipt. And let's do another one. So it would be on the same day, and this is a different type of expense. It's a lunch expense, and let's have a fancy lunch and upload the receipt. And I don't need the other two expenses, and so we have a total of $86, and let's save this report. Okay, we got a validation error which says lunch cannot exceed $30. This is because I have configured the expense details list with KWIZ Forms. Again, I have here a custom validation rule that says if expense type equals lunch, then cost cannot exceed $30. So this is just an example, and of course it works inside repeating rows. Now if you don't have KWIZ Forms, you cannot set up this kind of validation, but this is another subject, custom validations and how you can do it with KWIZ Forms. So let's just update this expense and save the item. Okay, so we're back at the list view, and we can see our new item. If I hover over view details, you can see in a nice tooltip all the expenses details. So I don't have to go to the expense details list, and I don't have to open the item in view mode just to see the expenses. I can see it very easily by using this custom tooltip. And the summary field that we had under the cost column appears here as another column available in our list view. Let's see now how this repeating rows column was configured. So the first step before you configure a repeating rows column, you need to have your two lists in place, the master and the detail. In our case, we have the expense reports list and the expense details list. This is the list where the expense details are taken from. Now back to the expense reports list. Let's go to the list settings and see how the repeating rows columns is configured. So I have here the expense details column, and you can see the type repeating rows. Let's click it. Okay, so this is the settings page. By the way, when you're working with KWIZ products, you always have on the right side here need help floating panel, which enables you to immediately chat with us or see some training videos about the product or get to the product documentation. Okay, so we have here the expense details repeating rows column. Now let's see how it was configured. So first thing to do is to connect it to a URL, which means the two lists that we are connecting now, the expense reports and the expense details, don't have to be on the same site. You can actually connect two lists which are located on different sites. And after you select your site URL, and it can be a hard-coded URL or you can use our tokens, which is always better to use tokens because it enables you to later deploy this as a site template, as part of a site template on another server and not worry about hard-coded URLs. But you can use full URLs if you want. Then you select your list. And here we selected the expense details list. Next, after you select the list, you see the available columns, and you choose which of them should be displayed. In our case, we just took all the columns from the expense details. So we show everything. And for each column that is displayed in the repeating rows field, you can also set up the width. So you see, for example, that the title has a width of 250 pixels, while the expense date, for example, is only 90 pixels width. Also, you can set up some summary fields. All the columns don't have any summaries besides the cost field, which I configured it to display a summary column, a summary field below this column, which is called sum cost. And as you saw, any summary field is also created as a column in the list itself, so you can see it in list views. Next thing is to create the reverse lookup. Now, what is the reverse lookup? We create a repeating rows column that lookups the details list, the expense details list. So actually the repeating rows columns is kind of a lookup field that connects the expense reports to the expense details. Now, when we do it, automatically a reverse lookup is created. And here we say what the name of this reverse lookup would be. So in the expense details list, a reverse lookup is created that lookups the expense reports list. Now, why do we need this reverse lookup? We need it because this way, when we go to the expense details list and we look at any specific expense details item, we can always get back and navigate to the originating expense report, to the parent of these expense details. Some layout configurations, so you can also control the sorting of the items, the expense details items in the view item form. And also you saw that there was an add row caption. I'll show it again now. So you can also configure, if you want, to allow users to add rows while reporting expenses. And if you do, you can also change the caption. And finally, you can do some advanced layout customizations by overriding our CSS file with your own, or even deeper layout changes by providing your own user control to really change the way this repeating rows field is rendered. And finally, you see the preview. Now, back to the expense reports list. So just a few things that I mentioned. So let's go to the edit item form, for example. So you see here the add row link, which enables me to add additional rows. As I mentioned, this is available because I configured it to allow users to add rows, so you can hide it or you can change the captions here. By the way, you can change all the captions by using the resource file. This is correct for, this is true for all our products. Now, another thing that I mentioned is the reverse lookup. So let's go to expense details. This is where all the expense details items are stored once you save your expense report. So let's have a look at one of the expense details items. It doesn't matter which one. Now, as you can see, there's a link here. There's a field called expense report. This is a lookup field. This is the reverse lookup field. So when I'm looking at the specific expense report item, expense details item, I can always get back to the originating expense report by just clicking this lookup field, reverse lookup field. It will take me back to the expense report where this details item is part of this report. So this is why we need the reverse lookup. Now remember, we have the approved column, which is locked for reading because it is supposed to be visible only for the user who approves these expense reports. So let's go now to IE browser and log in as that user who has the permissions to see this column. So now we're in IE and I logged in as sales1 user that I configured to have the permissions to see this column. Again, this is a KWIZ Forms feature, the ability to configure visibility on a column basis. And let's edit this expense report. So now, as you can see, the approved column is visible as checkboxes, allowing me as the approver to approve these expenses. Okay, so this was the expense reports demo. Let's move forward to the next demo. Next one is another very common usage scenario, which is an order form, a purchase order. And here I'd like to show some additional features. First one is called live calculated fields, and I'd like to provide some more details about this one. As you all know, SharePoint does provide calculated fields, but these calculated fields have some limitations. First, these calculated fields are visible only in the view item form and in list views. So you cannot view a calculated field, it's not visible in the new and in the edit item forms. Also, these calculated fields are not calculated live. They are calculated only when you save an item. So you cannot have out of the box, with SharePoint, you cannot have an edit form which shows some calculated field which is updated on the fly when you update some other fields. And the second feature that I'd like to show you is cascaded fields inside the repeating rows. So you can have a multi-row forms where you have there's some cascaded fields. Okay, so let's see how this works. I'm back in my SharePoint 2013 site and I have here the orders list. Let's have a look at the new item form. Okay, so we have here country, city, which are cascaded lookup. This is another product from KWIZ, which can be bought separately and also works inside the repeating rows and is also a part of KWIZ Forms product. And we have also the order details column, which is a repeating rows column, and it connects to another list which includes the order details. Same as we had with expense reports and expense details, we have here the orders list and the order details list. And let's start playing with this form a bit. So let's select the country, and as you can see, there's an AJAX request here to update the city because these are cascaded fields. And let's update some order details. So here again, I'm selecting a category, and this will update the products drop down. So the category and the products are cascaded fields. And let's have a price for this product and a quantity. And you might notice that we have here the total price column, but this field is different. It looks like it's disabled, it's grayed, because this one is a live calculated field. And if I wanted to get update, I'm just clicking the reload button, which will make it update to the calculation result of 20 times 4. So total price calculated field, live calculated field, was configured to show the result of price times quantity, which will give us the total price for this line. And this is how we have it for all the other rows. Let's add just one more order. And let's save the item. Let's give it some name. I don't know, order 2. I'm sure I have order 1 somewhere. So, and let's get rid of third line. I don't need it. Okay, so we have a total order of $200, and let's save it. And we can see the order here if we view the details. Last thing I'd like to show you, as I mentioned before, the live calculated fields are part of KWIZ Forms. In this example, it's the total price field, which looks great, and it auto-calculates according to the formula of price times quantity. Now I'd like to show you in 2 minutes how it's configured in KWIZ Forms. So I'm going to the details list. This is actually where this field is taken from. And here I'm going to the KWIZ Forms settings to field dynamic default values. And just a short explanation, in KWIZ Forms you can implement live calculated fields that appear in your new item form and edit item form by setting up dynamic default value rules. Now, unlike the out-of-the-box SharePoint default values, in KWIZ Forms you can set up a default value that reloads. So when you change a value of some other fields on your form, the default value will reload, and you can also configure the field to appear as read-only, as grayed field like we saw in our example. So here we see the KWIZ Forms dynamic default value settings page, and you can see that under current default value rules we have a single rule that says total price, which is our field, equals to a default value which is a formula, and it equals multiply quantity and price. So it equals to the multiplication of quantity and price fields. Dynamic default values also enable you to get default values from external sources such as Oracle or SQL Server and other web services and so on. So for those of you who are interested in this functionality, you're invited to go to QuizCon website and have a look at training videos. We have about 30 different training videos, short training videos that show you each and every capability of KWIZ Forms. This is the end of this session. Repeating rows is available as a product, so you can download it from a website or as a part of KWIZ Forms, which is a bigger product, and you can also find a trial version on our website. I'll take question now, and I'll just finish this recording. So thank you and bye-bye.